Happy Sabbath, Elevate family, and thank you so much for joining me today. Today we are going to be studying Ephesians 4. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Evelyn Gill. I've been recently married in the past couple of months, and I graduated this year too from Southwestern, got my nursing license, and now this week was my first week working. And wow, it has been a struggle this week. So many things got in the way, and at some point, to be honest, I got scared that it would interfere with my studies because work was so demanding, and just, the enemy works so hard. He tries to distract you in some ways. I got hit, someone crashed into me, and it was just a mess trying to figure out insurances or what am I going to do? What about my car? Thank God I was fine. But, there was just so many things that got in the way. And let me tell you that God is more powerful than anything. He's bigger, He's greater. So I'm just so thankful to be here. I'm so thankful to Pastor Michael for inviting me. I'm kind of sad that I was not the first speaker, because now I got these awesome ladies speaking in front of me and I got to live up to their expectations. They set the bar pretty high. So if something goes wrong here, blame Pastor Michael. So to start off, I'm going to start reading parts of the verse, most of chapter 4. I'm going to skip some parts and then I'll go back to them later. I hope you follow along. This was just my study, nothing professional, so I hope you can bear with me. So chapter 4, it says, "As a prisoner for the Lord, then I urge you to live a life worthy of the callings you have received. Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. There is one body and one Spirit, just as you were called, to one hope when you were called, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is over all and through all and in all." Then I'm going to skip over to 11. "So Christ himself gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the pastors and teachers to equip his people for works of service, so that the body of Christ may be built up until we all reach unity in the faith and in the knowledge of the Son of God and become mature, attaining to the whole measure of the fullness of Christ. Then we will no longer be infants tossed back and forth by the waves and blown here and there by every wind of teaching and by the cunning and craftiness of people and their deceitful scheming. We will grow, 15. Instead, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become in every respect the mature body of him who is the head, that is Christ. From him, the whole body, joined and held together by every supporting ligament, grows and builds itself up in love as each part does its work." We're going to skip down to 25. "Therefore, each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully to your neighbor, for we are all members of one body. In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you're still angry, and do not give the devil a foothold. Anyone who has been stealing must steal no longer, but must work, doing something useful with their own hands, that they may have something to share with those in need. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. And do not grieve the Holy Spirit of God, with whom you were sealed for the day of redemption. Get rid of all the bitterness, rage and anger, brawling and slander, along with every form of malice. Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as Christ, God, forgave you." So that is a lot, right? It comes with a lot of content. And when I first read it, Pastor Michael told me that the topic of this sermon was going to be growing in Christ. So I had a whole different picture. I thought it was going to be about personal growing. And although it is, I'm going to dive into this deeper and you're going to see what I discovered. And it's pretty great. All right, so let's dig in. Let's start at the beginning. I know it was a lot, so bear with me. I hope I didn't lose you already. It says, "As a prisoner for the Lord, then I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling you have received." Did you guys catch that? The calling that you have received. And I know this is something we have emphasized or tried to emphasize so much throughout the entire ministry of Elevate, that you're not here just taking up space and matter. You're here for a purpose. God called you. You have a purpose in this world, and it's not something small. You might think, oh, well, maybe I don't matter because, I don't know, my talents compared to other people seem pretty insignificant. But no, you matter. You were called for a purpose, and God gave you this jacket, like a Letterman jacket, to claim you because you're part of a team. So that we can be all cool together, whenever we see all those teams walking together with their uniformed sweats, with their cool names in the back, nice logo. Well, Jesus gave you one of those, and he wants you to be a part of his team because you're already called for it. And if we keep going to verse 2, be completely humble and gentle, be patient, bearing with one another in love. That verse alone is overwhelming. Let me tell you. Because whenever I started reading this, I read that and I said, really, Jesus, right off the back, you want to start calling me out on things that I struggle with. And I know I'm not alone with this. I just got married 2 months ago. And, not everything is butterflies. The whole thing is beautiful and has been so much fun. But let me tell you this, and I find it so funny. Every single time that I come across Pastor Michael, he always asks us, me and Danny, have you guys killed yourself yet? And I just laugh and I'm like, no, not yet. So I just wait for it. But it's pretty incredible how challenging simple words can be to us because they come with a lot of action, a lot of responsibility, and a lot of growth, right? But we're going to get there. And although it's going to be challenging, it's very possible. And I encourage you to try it. It says in verse 3, make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. So that verse right there kind of caught me. And I stopped on that verse for a long time because it just sounded very important. It said, make every effort to keep the unity. Just make every effort. Don't try here and there. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Only on the weekends, only on Saturdays. Or just whenever I'm feeling good about myself. No, it says make every effort, every second that we live, and we don't make that effort, we're failing in some sort of small way. And whenever we fail in a huge body because we're a small part of a much bigger picture, everything kind of stumbles. It's like Jenga. Whenever you pull the things from the bottom, everything kind of shakes. That's how it is. So we always got to be making every effort to keep that unity. And if we just finish off that verse of the Spirit through the bond of peace. Now, I don't know if you guys remember a couple of weeks ago that the Elevate team got together and we broke apart the blessing that we read in 1 Thessalonians. That the word peace, our friend Jonathan Coker gave us a new perspective, well, at least gave me a new perspective of that word. That word in the Hebrew language means shalom. And that doesn't just mean a state of mind of no anxiety, of just calmness. No, it means to restore brokenness to the original state. And I think that alone is just beautiful. Each one of us comes with our own brokenness, but it says here that we got to make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace, to restore. We got to make every effort to come together as that body of Christ and restore that body to its original state, because that is what's God's purpose, to have us unified, to work together. Be a team. It's just like those pictures that we see when we come across social media and magazines. Two people, it says to water each other. And you see the pictures, they're watering their heads, and from their heads are growing beautiful flowers, because that is what we're called to do. We're called to uplift each other, to help each other grow, not to push each other off because you want to get farther than the other. So it's a team effort. And right now we're seeing that huge team, everything that God has created, fall apart. We see country fighting against country because some people do COVID better than other people. And in other countries, they're opening and we're not. And we see races fighting with other races, that one's superior than the other, or just personal fights that you have with someone else or that I have with this person. There's so much going on. And there's so much that Satan is working for to destroy that unity. That bond of peace is being broken apart. And it's so sad that sometimes Even I'm guilty of letting that fall apart and just sitting by and watching it. But this is why we gotta move. Where is the love? Where is that unity? Where is that passion that we needed to have, because God gave everything for us? So when we just keep going, we just realize that in a body, there's different components, right? There's the arms, there's the leg, there's the toes, there's the nails, there's the hair, there's the eyes, everything. Everything has its own purpose in a body. So just like that, me and you have different talents, right? You have a very different talent than me, and I have a very different talent than you. But the goal here, the key, is to share those talents with those around you. I have a really cool talent, and I'm awesome, but I'm going to share that talent with you because that's something that you're missing. But it's okay that you're missing that, because you have a very cool talent, probably even cooler than mine, that I don't have, and I need you. We're a team, right? So just imagine whenever we work together, not only do we grow spiritually and physically as a whole body, but we grow in numbers, because there's always room for one more. We grow and people want to be a part of that body and say, hey, I'm tired of being alone. I want to be with that cool team. I want to be wearing those cool jackets, with the cool sweats, with the cool logo, a logo that God has imprinted on us, that ticket to go with him after all this ends, to go back in his second coming. So let's go down to verse 25. Therefore, you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully to your neighbor, for we are all members of one body. In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry, and do not give the devil a foothold. Anyone who has been stealing must steal no longer, but must work, doing something useful with their own hands, that they may have something to share with those in need. Words are powerful. And I know that whenever we're all angry, we might say things we regret, and that is why it is so important to watch our words. Because I'm sure if I asked you, go back in your mind and tell me the one time the person next to you was mean to you. And maybe they might have not been conscious about it, just one time that they have been mean to you, or just someone close to you. You'll remember it at the back of your head. And if I ask you, okay, what about your brother or your sister, your mom, your dad, your aunt, your cousin, your coworker, your peer? It is so easy to remember when someone was mean to you. And why is that? Why is it that if I ask you, okay, well, do you remember what one nice thing they said to you? It'll be harder for you to come up with it. Why? Why is it that it is so easy to hold on to those grudges and those hard words, and so easy to let every good effort that someone has done to you go? And I feel like that is because we're like that. We try to pin that on God. We fail him over and over daily, but it's up to us to get up. But when we don't, it just creates this tension, between you and God that he's not creating, you're creating, because now you feel guilty that you failed him. And then what happens with that? You feel guilty, and then you want to get close to him, but then you say, you know what? I'm not worthy of his love. I'm not worthy of him being there. He's probably mad at me. I don't deserve it. I know he remembers at one time I did this, I said this, I acted like this, or whatever it is. And then you and me, we kind of distance ourselves because we think that God's going to act the same way that we do. But he doesn't. He doesn't care about all the times that you've failed him. He's awesome, loving, and compassionate and merciful, and he just wants you. He says, hey, I don't care about all the times that you've messed up. I know you love me. You've claimed to love me once. I'm here with my arms open. I'm here loving you, and I'm ready for you to come love me back. So I think that is just a perfect example of how we should be. It gets really hard because sometimes we say, oh man, following God on blind faith, there's not much I can see. I can feel him spiritually, but it's kind of hard. Hey, he's there. You just got to toss those worries up to him And it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be right at that second, but I promise you that God is listening to you. So if we just keep going in verse 29, it says, "Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up." Let me say that again. Don't let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs. Wow. It's just, it takes me back to kindergarten or just elementary school when our teachers repeated it all the time. Whenever you were mean to someone or you heard someone else being mean to someone else, hey, if it's not nice, don't say it. And this is what Jesus is trying to tell us here. You know, why let something come out of our mouths that is going to impact someone so much and maybe hinder their relationship, their pathway that they're stumbling upon to get to God? We don't want to be that person. We want to help them because we need to be helpful to build each other up according to their needs, and everybody's needs is different. That's why it is so important the moment you wake up that you put yourself in God's hands and say, hey, tell me what to say today. Help me be an impact to someone else's life. Maybe it's a good morning and a smile, and that person's having a terrible day. No one's talked to them that day. No one's shared a smile with them. You can be all that difference. And that is what we're called to do, to be united, to build up that body. But building up that body is not going to be easy, as I've kept repeating. It's challenging, but this is why we're not alone. We have team members. I have you guys, and you guys have me. And maybe we're not all here together, but we're here in spirit, and we're fighting against this new normal that COVID has brought to us, and it's getting tiring. And I'm exhausted, and I know you're exhausted of just staying home, just going to the groceries, going to work, and come back. It's not fun. But at some point, looking through all this mess, it makes me feel hopeful. Because as this world's falling apart, it doesn't give us an excuse to fall apart with it. We got to keep standing tall because Jesus is coming soon. Anyways, if we go back, because there's some parts that I had skipped, so we're going to go back to verse 17. So we already heard about how we should be, how we shouldn't be, because this is how Jesus has taught us. He came here, he descended, and to live the life that me and you are living, and he ascended, making that all the more glorious, just so he can give us that example. And here he is reminding us of that example, that it's possible to follow him. In verse 17, there it is. He's urging us to, Paul again, instructions for Christian living. "So I tell you this and insist on it in the Lord, that you must no longer live as the Gentiles do. In the futility of their thinking, they are darkened in their understanding and separated from the life of God, because of the ignorance that is in them due to the hardening of their hearts. Having lost all sensitivity, they have given themselves over to sensuality, so as to indulge in every kind of impurity, and they are full of greed." And something that caught my eye in that little section from verse 17 to verse 19, verse 19, the beginning of it says, "Having lost all sensitivity, they have given themselves over to sensuality as to indulge in every kind of impurity." They have given themselves over to it. They are enslaved by their sin. And if I ask you a question, what is that one thing that God has actually given you? Not things, not blessings, borrowings, like a cool house or talents or awesome parents and friends and family. No, that one thing that you actually own, that God said, hey, this actually belongs to you. The freedom of choice. These people, these Gentiles, the way they were living, they lost that freedom of choice. They gave up that freedom of choice and decided to be a slave to sin. So now in their day by day, they weren't making these decisions. They were just being carried away, tossed by the sea, blown by the breeze left and right, according to what everybody else was doing. And no one saw anything wrong with it. Everybody was stuck in the same mindset. And that is so sad. And that is not what God wants us from us. He gave you that freedom of choice for a reason. And he's showing you a better life with a better purpose, with an awesome calling, an important calling, because he wants you to be a part of it, because you're that important to him. And so whenever you evolve yourself into that lifestyle of giving up your choice, you put this jacket of dirtiness, this jacket of being mean, this jacket of being unfair, unjust, of not being humble, and you just keep piling on these jackets and you're drowning. You can't breathe, you're tight, you're suffocating yourself. And it's not comfortable, and that's not the way that God's living, but you don't see a way out of it. But let me tell you, if that is you feel like you're far too deep, or you've messed up today or yesterday or the week before, Jesus wants to be that life jacket for you. In verse 22, if we just keep going, let's just start at verse 20. That, however, is not the way of life you have learned, right? Because Paul has already told us here and there of how we should be living, how we should be following God's example, loving one another, and being a team, building up that body. It says, when you heard about Christ and you were taught in him in accordance with the truth that is in Jesus, you were taught with regard to your former way of life to put off your old self. Take those jackets off. Put off that old life that you have been living, which is being corrupted by its deceitful desires. And Satan is working very hard. I promise you this, and don't underestimate that. He's working very hard to make everything around you be pretty. The way other people are living be attractive. Everything that this world, the media is presenting to you, he wants to just, hit you left and right with these things that look so good, but really they bring no good to you. And it's in our nature as humans to fall, but don't use that as an excuse to keep falling. You know better. You've heard it, you've heard it here. You've heard it at Elevate. A parent or a friend or a mentor at some point has reminded us, hey, there's a better way. And then in verse 23, it says, to be made new in the attitude of your minds and to put on the new self, created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness. At that moment when it's telling you to take off your old self and put on a new attitude, a new mindset, to be mature and to be like God. Because in the beginning, how did God create Adam and Eve? He made them in his image. You see, and he didn't make them alone. This is why God made Eve for Adam, because we were meant to have socialization, to have companionship, to have love, friends, and family, because we can't do this together. We need the support. This is why it's so important for us to be smart of where we're surrounding ourselves, the environment, the people, because we have that choice to put ourselves all in the better, to put ourselves in the hand of God. Because God is superior to everything. If you go back to verse 16, from him, the whole body, joined and held together by every supporting ligament, grows and builds itself up in love, as each part does its work. He is the center of it all. He's the mastermind of this entire body that me and you are a part of, this plan that me and you have been called for, because we have a purpose. But we can't just sit back, be lazy, and watch the world fall apart and say, hey, it's okay, Jesus is coming soon anyways. No, it says, as each part does its work. Our job isn't over just because we're seeing these signs that Jesus is coming back. We still have a purpose, and we still have those 2 cents to put back in. This is why we got to keep uplifting each other as a team. And to be part of a team, you can't just be mean. You can't be prideful. You can't be talking behind your team members' backs. You can't be talking against Jesus. Why? Because these are all crucial people, part of your team. If your teammate's not doing their job, you don't want to be a part of their team. You don't want them to be a part of your team either. Why? Because you got to move on. You have a job to do. And brothers and sisters, our job isn't over. Just like in Romans 6, 7, and 8, I'm going to ask you to turn with me, hoping you have your Bibles, or if you have your electronic Bibles, they're with you. Romans 6, 7, and 8. it says, we're actually going to start in 6. For we know that our old self was crucified with him, so that the body ruled by sin might be done away with, that we should be no longer slaves to sin, because anyone who has died has been set free from sin. And not necessarily died physically, but died in putting off that old self. There's so many things, flaws that me and you struggle with, and maybe not everything is going to be stripped away overnight, but we're going to keep working. And that is a challenge that I'm presenting to you, that me and you have to stand up. You know, we have to extend our hands over to our brothers and sisters who are struggling in different ways because they have that peace that you're missing. This is why you can't keep going forward, and you have that peace that they're missing. We got to lift each other up. We got to keep going. We got to keep moving. And then if you go over to a couple books later in Philippians 1:21, it says, "For to me to live is Christ, and to die is gain." Amazing. To live is Christ, and to die is gain. Because Paul realizes and is trying to implement this and engrave this in our minds, that if you're going to be living, you can't just be living, taking up space and matter and ignoring God, because you were created for a purpose. So why live if we're not going to be dedicating ourselves every second to God, our creator, the mastermind of this body, of this purpose? But when we leave that old life and decide to let that old part of us die, we're gaining. We're gaining that love. Even though we already have it, we're going to feel like we earn it because we're working hard for it, because we're helping the people around us. And we're going to be gaining a life eternally. A life that is going to be so beautiful up in heaven in a way that you can't even imagine. You think Streets of Gold is going to be cool and awesome and shiny. He's got something better, I promise, and I can't imagine. I can't give you a clue. I wish I had it, but maybe next time if Pastor Michael invites me back, or maybe he won't because, maybe I'm doing so terrible in this, so be kind with me. We got to get there. We got to get there, and we need each other. I can't enforce that enough, and I'm probably sure that you're tired of hearing it, but look around. Like I said, everything is falling apart, and we gotta bring that peace back. We gotta bring that shalom back. We gotta restore the relationships that we've broken. So if you know that you've kind of been a part of this brokenness here, you go and find that tape of love, of unity, and that tape that's missing of that brokenness. Take Jesus with you and tape it back. Do something. Just like it said in verse, going back to Ephesians. Sorry, I'm taking you everywhere. Anyone who has been stealing must steal no longer, but must work. Not necessarily if you've been stealing. If you've done something wrong, go fix it. Go restore it. God has a purpose. And in order, remember verse 3, you got to make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. We got to bring that back. And there's this really cool thing that I've kind of made up. So maybe it's not going to be cool to you, but I think it was pretty cool, that I've put together to kind of simplify this message. And you might be like asking yourself, well, yeah, you've emphasized so much unity and lifting each other up, because that is very important. But let me show you that even though you might be overwhelmed by all these instructions and things that you can't do and things that you should be doing and things that we should have probably doing from day one, and we've been failing so much and we think that we're just too far gone. It's not. You still got those 2 cents. You still got that jacket. It's waiting for you. So let's put it on together and let's go back and see what Jesus has for us together as a team. So I brought these cool things. Well, it's really not that cool. It's just a piece of paper with my writing, just to help you remember what I talked about today so you can take it with you. G. We're going to start with G. Gentiles. Just like in verse 17, Paul tells us, please, I tell you this, and I insist on it in the Lord, you must no longer live like the Gentiles. And if you go back down to verse 22, and verse 20, that is not the way of life that you've learned. Verse 22, you were taught with regard to your former old life to put off your old self. So let's not be like the Gentiles. Let's put off those jackets that they're hoarding, everything negative in your life, and you keep holding on tight so that you're suffocating yourself. You can't breathe. Let it go. Take off those jackets. Okay? Because you want to be made new in the attitude of your minds, to put on the new self, created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness. Put on that life jacket that God has made for you. Those cool jackets, to be uniform with all our brothers and sisters, with that logo, that stamp that God has given us, that God has stamped us from the very beginning because he claimed us from that day. That is how much he loves us. He gave his one and only son just for you. We take that for granted, and we don't listen when we listen to that. Oh yeah, he gave his one and only son, but just listen to that. You who are parents must know. And us that we have parents or just other people, imagine someone sacrificing someone so big, the thing they loved the most, just for you. It's a big jacket to wear. But I promise you, it's the right jacket for you. And once you put on that jacket, you're going to be able to breathe again. You're going to be able to laugh again, smile again, feel whole, be a part of something bigger than ourselves. Because we're part of this awesome body that God has created for a much better purpose. And it's not even to keep working for him. Because once we get to heaven, we're going to be praising him, but we're going to be living the life, I promise you. Right now, we're all tired of waking up, our jobs, bills, responsibilities. That's not going to be there anymore. God has a life prepared for you that you will fully enjoy. So what's next after after G? R. My bad, I skipped ahead. Repair. In verse 3, you make every effort to keep that unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace, to keep that shalom. Go back and repair. Repair brokenness inside of you. And doing that, you can't do it on your own. You got to go to God. You got to go to God and say, Jesus, take off, like that verse said, get rid of all that bitterness, rage, and anger, brawling, and slander, along with every form of malice. Take it off, and it's going to be uncomfortable. We don't like to be called out. We don't like to be put on the spot. We don't like when things change because we like routines. We like the life that we have created, that bubble, but Jesus is going to come and burst that bubble as soon as you give him that opportunity, because he wants to make you better. He wants to take off all those extra layers, and it's going to be weird. It's going to be hard, but I promise you, you're going to feel so much better once you do. Repair those relationships with your brother and sister, with that coworker, with that family member, with that peer. Repair those. Let's stop the wars that's going on. And if we all work together, can you just imagine the impact that we will have? If we all say, hey, you know what? We're done being lazy. We're going to stand up for what we believe in. And we believe in the same thing, brothers and sisters. Let me tell you, just as verse 4 says, there is one body, one spirit, just as you were called to one hope when you were called, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is over all and through all and in all. We have the same goal. And we might get sidetracked by different ways that we grew up, or different opinions that are floating around in social media, being on this team, being on this other team, saying yes, of saying no, putting a mask on, a mask off. There's so much going on. But we just got to look to that one person. We all got one person to look to, and it's our Father. And he will tell us exactly how to live, what choice to make, what things to put on, what jacket to wear, what things to put off. And it'll be so much easier once we have him on our team. Well, once we include ourselves in his team. I invite you to do that. Repair, to bring back that unity that God created from the very beginning. His purpose was to have us unified, a whole body working together. Just as verse 13 says, until we all reach a unity in the faith and in the knowledge of the Son of God, become mature, to grow together. Let's go to our next one. Overcome. Overcome your old self. You've already heard me say this, how in verse 20 to 24, it says to put off your old self, which is being corrupted by its deceitful desires, and put on a new attitude of your minds, and to be created like God in true righteousness and holiness. Take those old layers off. You're suffocating. And with those old layers that you feel so comfortable in, but you know that they're wrong, you might feel like you're in this warm little bubble, and you say, it's okay, I'll just add on God's life jacket. It's going to be too tight. You're going to feel too uncomfortable. Take off those layers. Take them off. Let off that old life, those old habits, those old words, thoughts. Take back that choice. Take back Jesus. Go to Jesus and say, hey, I take you back. And Jesus is right there waiting for you and saying, I've been here all along with my arms open, just waiting for you. Individualized just for you, because that's how much he cares for you. That life jacket means so much. That life jacket will be a light to other people. And whenever you have a lamp in your house, you don't put it on the floor, you put it in the highest place. In the highest place so that it can give light to more people. And that is what we're called to do. Put on that jacket and let's help out those other people. Let's overcome our old self, old habits, and let's put on this cool new jacket to be a part of this cool team, because we gotta keep moving, because Jesus is coming back and our work isn't done. Whole, to be unified. In verse 13, he says, and going back to verse 12, to equip his people for works of service. He has given us everything of works of service, because we need to be there for one another, serving one another, until we all reach unity in the faith, in the knowledge of the Son, and become mature, attaining the whole measure of fullness of Christ. Not a fourth of Christ, not a third, not a half, not other quarters of it. No, attaining the full measure, because God wants us to be up there with him. God has given us everything, and I promise you everything. You're not missing anything other than extending your arms, because we're a team. We're missing each other. That is the component that we're missing. We gotta be unified, guys. We gotta drop these fights, these wars, these differences. That is Satan working, and we can't keep letting him win over your battles. Because he works, but Jesus works harder. I promise you, he's waiting for you to just say, Jesus, please just take it from me. Take the wheel. Together. I said we got to be unified. We got to be a team, because we got to do it together. Just as verse 1, he says, I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling you have received. Because here he didn't just name a couple of people. He didn't name Moses, Paul, any other people in the Bible, Luke. No, and he didn't name just Pastor Michael and Pastor Russ or other people that you relate with, associate yourself with. No, he says he's the calling that you have received. Like I said, we can't keep being lazy. And it might sound very repetitive, but I want this to go in your heads and engrave it, because we gotta move. Jesus is coming, and this is the moment that we gotta stand up and said, okay, this is enough. We gotta move. In verse 32, be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as Christ God forgave you. Forgiveness. That word is rough, and it's not easy. And at some point, we've had to forgive someone in our lives, something that went wrong. We've had to forgive and let go and let God, right? That is what we have to do. You can't do it alone. Whenever you're angry and you're mad at someone and you're all alone, you don't feel good, you feel sad and you want to cry and you want to be even more angry. But when you're surrounded by those people that we love, and once we say, hey, it's okay, come give me a hug, let's be friends again, let's, hug it out, let's be a family again, we feel so much better and we feel unified, we feel whole, right? Because that is God's purpose for us, to be together and work together. And the last component, which is not the least, it is the most important, H. And you might notice, you say, well, you write kind of weird. Your H is way bigger than every other letter, but that's because this is the key. Yeah, the importance of everything is for us to be unified, but that tape that I talked to you guys about, to repair, to bring back that shalom, that peace, is Him. God. God is the last letter that brings this word together to say growth. We gotta grow. We won't do it alone. We gotta put together to be unified, wholeness together. But Jesus, we got to do it through Him. In verse 4, like it says, there is one body, one Spirit, just as you were called to one hope when you were called, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God, and Father of all, who is over all and all and in all. He repeated 1 7 times. Remember, I've said this before. When someone in the Bible repeats something more than once, it's because it's important. Through God, we'll be successful. He is what we're missing in order for us to be able to grow. And if you go to verse 16, from Him, the whole body, joined and held together by every supporting ligament, grows and builds itself up. Grows and builds itself up. I'm going to say it one more time. Grows and builds itself up in love, as each part does its work. It's overwhelming. What do you do? Evelyn, you're asking me for too much. Why did you call me out this way today? Breathe, it's okay. I'm in the same boat. When I read this, and I'm going to be transparent with you, I knew that this that I was studying was meant for me at the right moment of my life. And I want to share this with you guys. Because I look around and I see so much hurt, so much pain, people dying, people sick, people oppressed, people not being able to worship God. It's ugly out there, you guys, and it's scary. Whenever we're scared, we don't want to be alone. So I urge you to grow. Let's grow and let's start in the beginning. Just as Paul says, be completely humble, be gentle, patient, bearing with one another in love. Don't talk unwholesome talk against other people, against God, because once you start doing those things, you stain that cool jacket that you have. And that jacket reflects God. So we got to keep that jacket clean. We got to work together to wear that jacket. And let me tell you one thing, because whenever you wear that awesome jacket, and whenever they see us walking as a team, another person that doesn't have that jacket, who is in the very same position than me and you are today, is going to look at us and say, hey, I want to be a part of that team. I want a cool jacket. And what's our job? Come here. Let me help you. I have this that can probably help you. I have this resource. And dang, it makes so much sense that you're with us now, because you have that one thing that we've been missing as a team. And they're going to put on that jacket. And it's going to be okay. We're not going to run out of jackets, because I tell you what, there's always room for one more. We got to open our hands and extend those blessings to those around us, brothers and sisters. It's so important. And we're not going to run out of our blessings, I promise you. Just as in the Bible, the story of the loaves and the fish, the disciples were scared that they weren't going to have enough, not even for everybody that was sitting out in the crowd, not even for themselves. And what ended up happening, there was enough for everyone to get third, seconds, fourth, and there were still enough baskets to take home. There's still going to be enough. There is enough to go around. So if you imagine if me and you start opening our hands, start sharing our gifts, uplifting each other, and we start a chain of reaction, everybody's going to start doing that. The whole earth will be covered, and we're going to attract many brothers and sisters who are lost, who think they're not worthy, all because they think that one mistake has marked their life. But we're going to go up to them with a tissue and say, hey, wipe those tears off, and we're going to help them take off those layers. We're going to help them take them to God, because He is the center of it, and He is the key. Through Him, we will attain growth that was intended individually for that, so that me and you could be a part of something bigger, of a body. And it's not going to change overnight. So you got to be patient. And please be patient. So these next couple of weeks, I challenge you. Work with me. Let's grow together. Let's study the Bible together. Let's start changing our habits little by little, the way we talk, the way we walk, the way we present ourselves to one another. Let us not only be pretty on Sabbath day, on Sabbath morning. No. Let's wear that cool jacket every day and all day, so we can grow. And whenever Jesus comes back, we've said, hey, we've done every single step. We've stopped living our old life. We've let it go, put on our new life. We've repaired. We've brought that back, that peace, and we've overcome everything. We've gotten so far to be whole, unified as a body that Jesus has intended, together through Him. So I hope you liked my little study. I hope you guys have a happy Sabbath. And I wish you guys nothing but blessings and growth in these next couple of days, these next couple of weeks from now until Jesus comes back. Thank you for tuning in.